Lillie Schechter is the returned Harris County Democratic Party chair. Texas Harris County is a bellwether county and the third largest county in the country. Los Angeles and Cook County, Illinois, the only two more populous. Under her reign, Democrats have thrived not only in winning all major elections, but getting out the vote. It is for this reason that Republicans in the Texas State Legislature are attempting to carve out policies that undemocratically depress the votes of the Democratic base in the county. Lillie Schechter, HCDP or current HCDP chair, she told me earlier on she's not abandoning us. She's just changing her role. Welcome to Politics Done Right.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here today and giving me the opportunity to say again how much I love the Democratic Party and how thrilled I have been in the work we've done over the last two cycles. And I'm not going anywhere, just switching my roles. I believe that an organization of our size always benefits from new energy and new excitement.
I agree with that, and I don't want to go there yet because I know. I mean, we're gonna get there because what you've accomplished in Harris County is it's important. And it shows you're definitely going to be leaving a legacy out here. So tell us what you found when you got to Harris County. We know there was a whole lot of work that needed to be done. We know that we needed to get some young energy in here. We knew that we needed to get a whole lot to revitalize what has always been a Democratic Party that was not necessarily in sync with its own environment. You did a whole lot to make sure that it became in sync. Tell us what you found first, and then we'll move on from there.
I mean, when I first got to the Democratic Party office in 2017, I found an office that really wasn't an office that thrived during election season, but if it wasn't September through November, it had a very small staff that was just keeping the party apparatus going, making sure our CECs were happening, that our steering committee meetings were happening, and that our precinct chairs were being sworn in, and we were recruiting a few precinct chairs here and there. What we didn't find was an office that had a thriving Democratic Party year-round, that had a full-time staff that reflects the size of Harris County. So that was one of the first things we did. I was elected in March of 2017. The first activity I did as I came in as party chair was to do a fundraiser 1 month after I first got sworn in to make sure that we could raise the funds so that we could hire more staff and have a year-round operation. And it's the exact same thing I'll be doing on my way out. I'm going to be having the party staff and I are working on an event for end of June to continue to raise funds for the Democratic Party.
I think that is important, and you did quite a bit more than that. The location, the initial location of the Democratic Party was kind of not really within the community, and I think you did something that probably many had found quite shocking. You kind of moved it into where the people that support the Democratic Party are. Tell us a little about that, and tell us a little bit what you went through doing that.
So first, we had to raise a little bit of money in order to make changes like that. And then we moved to, in 2017, in August of 2017, we moved to Fifth Ward, to the heart of Fifth Ward, to a storefront location. The Democratic Party had been in an office building in kind of the Heights area for about 10 years or so. And it was a smaller office. And we felt like it was so important to take the party to where the people are. And so we moved it into the heart of Fifth Ward.
That is important. I mean, I think one of the reasons I wanted to have you on as well, because again, we're seeing all over. And the important thing is that what happens in Harris County is something that needs to happen in counties, not only here in Texas, but throughout the country, if we're going to get this sort of a progressive movement where people always feel engaged. And what you talked about before, that you really wanted to make sure that you engage the people year-round and not become that Democratic Party that when we're looking for your vote, we want you. After that, you know, you're on your own. Give us a little bit more about what drove you to do some of that.
I mean, absolutely. I think the only way we grow the party and we build the party is to make sure that our partners in the party know that we care about them year round and that we're working on issues that we care about together. So that's something that you cannot do during an election season, starting after Labor Day and then ending, November, the beginning of November. That's something that requires real deliberate activities and time so that we are actually strengthening relationships in our communities around Harris County, because we have a coalition. Our party is made up of a coalition of a lot of different voters, but we cannot take any voter for granted. We need to talk to voters about the issues that matter to them so that when they go into the ballot box, they know what it means to be a Democrat, and they've met Democrats and they've worked with Democrats and they've worked side by side with Democrats. So when they go in to vote for Democrats, it means something to them more than just, hitting a D next to the lever or, a D next to everyone's name at this point. But it's about relationships and strengthening those, and that you cannot do in a month or 2 months. You have to do it year round. So it's so important to me. It was so important that we not only turn the party into a year-round operation, but we build out a staff that looks like the community around us and works in those communities around Harris County.
I tell you something, Lillie. You kind of make interviewing you a bit difficult because as it's almost like you're aspirating the next question or the next statement that I'm going to make. So I'm not going to get upset about that. But are you reading my mind or something?
I think we probably come from the same mindset when we're talking about the party, which shows why we have similar thoughts on it.
I think that's what it is. But here's the interesting thing, because you brought up something that I wanted to talk about, but bring in a little bit different way. You brought up about having your staff, which it does. I'm looking at your staff right now, and your staff look like America. Your staff looks like Houston, one of the most dynamic cities, one of the most culturally diverse cities in this country. But not only that, there's another distinction within the Democratic Party. It's not only about culture, but it's also about different classes that coexist seamlessly, or that we hope to coexist seamlessly. And one of the things that I thought you brought to the party, and you did it quite well, is the ability to create that glue among these different sects within the party in Harris County. Because Harris County is a blessed county with money and a blessed county with poverty. And when we go to the functions, we see them all in that place coexist. And tell me, how did you pull that out?
Well, I think one of the things that's so important to recognize about the Democratic community is that it is a family, and it encompasses all different walks of life, and making sure that people feel comfortable at all of our events, and that we do events that range in, that from free to our fundraising events that have all kinds of ticket prices, to make sure that if we do have a fundraiser and we have an amazing speaker, like, maybe Secretary Clinton who came and spoke, or, Speaker Pelosi who came and spoke as well, making sure that we also make that event accessible to people with either free tickets to some or discounted tickets to some, because I do think it's so important. And I think, and I'm sorry, I'm going to probably repeat myself a couple of times, but the Democratic Party is made up of not just donors, not just elected officials, not just activists, not just volunteers, and not just precinct chairs, but all of those people. And in order for us to make our county better, we all have to move in the same direction together. And I think it's one thing that is so critical when you're talking about the progressive movement or the Democratic movement, is that it's not just about the Democratic Party, right? It's about all the organizations that do organizing year round, that do community organizing year round. It's about new organizations that have popped up, like Swing Left or Indivisible, that aren't necessarily part of the, Democratic establishment, for lack of a better word, but organizations that are vital to our Democratic community, and just make sure that everyone feels comfortable at those events. And it's not, the Democratic Party demands this and the Democratic Party says this, but it's as a Democratic community that we all say these things together. That's one of the things why I think we've been so successful in Harris County. It's recognizing that we all come from different places, but we share 95% of the same ideals and values. And so making sure that everyone's comfortable in the same room.
It is important that you actually use the quote unquote Democratic establishment, because there is one. And one of the things I think that you excelled at is that you were able to fuse the Democratic establishment with the Democratic activists, with the different sects. And again, I mean, it is not an easy thing to do, because those of us that are real progressive activists, we want everything now. And to stay together in that we're going to actually work together to get things done, I think it's important. And I think you played an important role in the way you mitigated a lot of the things that would otherwise been. Your thoughts?
I mean, thank you for saying that. That's very nice. I definitely feel
I wasn't trying to be nice. I was just saying how you what you did. That's all.
I mean, I do think that that's very nice. And I think that it's a challenge, but I think if you come to the table with an open mindset and a willingness to communicate and to make people comfortable in a room together, then I think you can then have conversations that sometimes we just shy away from. And there are conversations that, and the Democratic Party are harder to have sometimes, but just always reminding each and every one of us that we agree on 95% of the issues. It's that there's a 5% that we don't agree on. And there's, another percent on another conversation about how quickly we want things to happen. Do we want to burn the house down now, or do we want to change it from the inside? But ultimately we share the same values. And it's a constant reminder that we share those same values is how you have those conversations. So I don't know that there's anything special about me. I think anybody can adapt that mindset and do something similar.
Well, I beg to differ in one extent, in that there are some people who don't want to make that adjustment. They don't want to actually bring everybody to the table. It's my way or the highway. What I like, if you take a look at your staff, which has grown quite a bit from the days that we did a little bit of volunteer work in that little room at the, it's grown quite a bit. If you take a look at the staff, it reflects it culturally. It reflects it from the downright activist to the downright establishment person. So I mean,
I always have to quote establishment because I'm a Democrat who's grown up in Texas, and the word establishment to me is always the Republicans that have been, leading our state, or, the elected Republicans in our state. And so I always considered those people to be establishment, not necessarily a Democrat who's, fighting for different issues as the establishment. So I always end up quoting it, and I apologize because it's just was such an interesting word choice that I really became more prevalent, in 2016 that I just wasn't that familiar with. So.
Yeah, well, we those of us in the deep activist community, we like to use that word,
But I consider us all to be activists and fighters together against the Republican regime. So it's,
we actually are. But, you do need, I am in other organizations. I'm in one called the Coffee Party USA, where we try to bring not only all kinds of Democrats together, but also include Republicans and independents, anarchists, socialists, everything together. Wow. Right?
Yeah,
we tried, not an easy task, but we try to do that. And I think by you caging all these folks doing it the right way, that's a good thing. Let's talk a little bit now about your performance. Okay. In other words, there's a whole lot that has happened, and I'm going to let you sent out a letter when you decided that it was time that you passed the baton. And, some of the things, I'll be honest, some of the things I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's in there. So tell us all these different things that you're able to do here in Harris County, and hoping that it's going to be mirrored other places as well.
I mean, I think one of the things you're talking about is just like the amazing list of stats that we put together.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah. And some of it is that when you have a year-round operation and an office and a big staff, it allows you to talk to more people and to get more people involved in the process. When you're able to raise the funds to support the party, it also allows you to have digital program and have an email fundraising program and organizers that we weren't able to do. So our numbers are exponentially greater because the way you win is you build a team of people, and then you all work together for the same causes and for the same goal. Not one person can do anything alone, right? The bigger the team we have, the better we're going to do in Harris County. So I really hope other county parties in Texas and our next party chair really think about the bigger team that you build, the more successful Democrats will be. So never try to do it all on your own. Figure out what you're good at, and then figure out what you're bad at, be okay with acknowledging that you're not going to be perfect at everything, and build a team where you complement each other, and then go out and see how big of a volunteer team you can create, how big of an organizing team you can put together, how many digital ads can you actually pay for, how many text messages can you actually send, all of those, because our county has, a couple million registered voters in it. That's great. We have another 250,000 that we need to register here in Harris County so that we can continue to increase our margin statewide. That's a lot. Those are huge numbers that we need a huge team to do. So we were able to do that. And I'm kind of rambling on your question.
No. Please continue.
We were able to do that because we had so many boots on the ground doing the work. And so our stats are amazing. I think we were able to raise close to $5 million. And that's not just because of me. That's because I got on the phone and I enlisted a bunch of other people to get on the phone. And then we did a digital program, and then we did email fundraisers. And then I would reach out to people that I knew to say, hey, can you help us get this amazing speaker in here? Because I don't know them, but maybe you can help us. And then they would help. And so you just have to be willing to ask people for help, and not only willing, excited about being very persistent. I call myself a professional nagger sometimes, because that's what I do, to get more people involved in the process. But you'll never know unless you ask. So I always tell my stepkids also, like, they say that they don't, they'll be in class and say they have a question about something, but they're a little bit nervous, and you're never going to know the answer unless you ask the question. So just ask and speak up and make your voice heard. And that's what we do at the party every day, to make sure that we're all asking for our volunteers, our friends, our donors, our elected officials, everybody to get involved and do as much as they can and push as hard as they can.
Well, that is great, because I tell you what, I live in the reddest part of your county, and that is what they do out here. They are overrepresented in our voting, because they are in continuous communication with their people, and they've empowered all of their external groups. In other words, their external groups are an integral part of them. And that's what I like. I've seen you work with Indivisible. I've seen you work with Swing Left. I've seen you work with all these other, of course, I'm calling which ones I'm calling, but I've seen you work with all these groups. And I think that is what the opposition has been doing for a very long time, successfully. Absolutely. Empowering other people to bring other people into the domain. So I think that is wonderful. Now, before we go, I want you to give some advice to a group of people that are difficult voters. I went into the Latino area of Houston because I speak Spanish, and one of the things I found was a very difficult sell. First of all, I found more Republicans than I expected, and I couldn't understand why, and they couldn't understand why themselves, based on who was putting out their better interests. But also I found folks that didn't believe things were going to work for them. This was back, I think, in 2018 when I block walk, or 2018 when I block walk. And what are we going to do for those communities that are so far out of, what we see? What do we do?
I think there's a couple things. One is making sure we all recognize that no community is a monolith. And so you can never approach the Latino community with the same conversation with every door that you go to. But I think it's also talking to people about the positive changes they've seen in their lives, because we are electing Democrats, is a conversation in 2018 we were not able to have at the same level we will be able to have this election cycle. I think that in 2018, we didn't control commissioner's court.
Right.
And I think that has dramatically changed the way Harris County, people viewed government in Harris County, and the conversation we'll be able to have with voters talking about what it means to re-elect someone like Judge Lina Hidalgo, and re-elect someone like Commissioner Adrian Garcia, and talk about the different, the reactions to COVID that we were able to have here locally, that other people were not able to have, the vaccines that we were able to help spread, the Immigration Defense Fund, bail bond reform, all the different issues that they've been able to champion since they got to office. And I think some of it's dispelling bad information that's out there, and some of it is just having conversations with people. And I think what you're one of the things you're saying without actually saying it is that you went block walking in 2018. Were we talking to them in 17? Were we talking to them in 16 after the election? Were we talking to them in 15? Are we continuing to have those conversations so that we can have, build a relationship, and then also talk about things that have improved because Democrats have been in office? One of the hardest parts of polling that like breaks my heart every time I see this information in polling says people don't think that when Democrats get to office, they make any changes. They don't see them as any different than Republicans. And I want to bang my head against the wall because if Republicans have been in power in the state for over 20 years, longer than that, 25 years, how could we make any changes if we don't have any power at the state level? So you have to look at lower levels. And so Commissioner's Court and what we've been able to do in Harris County and the city of Houston, it's why the legislature is fighting against us so hard right now, is because they want to limit the good things we can do at the local levels. Because then voters can see that we actually can enact like good progressive policy at the local level. And that's why the Republicans have been, they've been in power for so long and are fighting so hard against us right now. So I think it's just having a more in-depth conversation. It's not a 1-second soundbite answer that you can give a voter.
Absolutely. All right. 2 questions, an easy one and the other one you're going to have to think about.
Okay. All
right. The first one is, so what's next for Lillie Schechter? And the second one is, and I'm giving you the other one so you can think about it as you speak.
Okay.
What didn't I ask you that you wished I had asked you?
First question, I will be taking vacations over the summer with our kids and having a little bit of downtime while I, think about what's next and figuring out ways that I can still be involved in Democratic politics. I also want to give the party chair enough support, the next party chair, enough support on their way in, but also need to take a step back so that they can take over the party because they are the new leader of the party. What the question you didn't ask me would probably have something to do with what do you think 2022 is shaping up? What kind of races are you expecting from 2022? And that I think is a much more difficult question. I think that we have the voters here. We've proved it for the last 3 elections, the 16, 18, and 20. We have the voters here. We just have to get them to turn out. So I want to make sure that everybody gets involved in the Democratic Party, a local club, swing left, indivisible, whatever you are the most comfortable, whatever organization where you feel the most comfortable and you most identify with, get involved, be active, and make sure that you're talking to other people about the importance of reelecting Judge Lina Hidalgo and Adrian Garcia in 2022.
Lillie Schechter, chairperson of the Harris County Democratic Party. Thank you so kindly for having been here on.
Of course, happy to do it. So glad we got to make it work.
Absolutely. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.